I never thought an ordinary summer evening would end with me pulling a screaming suitcase from Lake Lanier. I'd been grilling catfish on the back porch, glancing at the orange sky dimming behind the pines, when I saw her, Regina, march down the dock with one of those black rolling suitcases I'd seen her lug through my house before. She didn't say a word, just walked briskly, her sandals slapping against the wood, hair swinging like a pendulum of warning. And then, without breaking stride, she heaved the suitcase into the water. It made a hard splash, bobbing once, twice. That suitcase floated oddly, too stiff. Then I heard it. A thump. Faint. Then another. I was out of my chair before I could think, feet pounding the grass. "Regina!" I yelled, voice cracking as I sprinted toward the dock. "Regina, what the hell did you just do?" She didn't flinch, didn't even look back, just paused at the foot of the porch stairs, gave me this sick little smile, and turned away like I was nothing but an old woman chasing ghosts. My hands were trembling. I slipped once on the slick planks, knees scraping the dock. The suitcase was drifting further. I plunged in. The water was warmer than it should have been, thick with lakeweed and God knows what else. I swam fast, mind racing, lungs burning. When I reached the suitcase, I yanked it toward me. It was heavier than it looked. One wheel had snagged on fishing line, slowing it down just enough. I dragged it to the shore, waterlogged and groaning, and collapsed beside it in the mud and grass. There was a faint sound, scratching, then a muffled mewling. Heart in my throat, I fumbled with the zipper, hands slippery and clumsy. The moment the zipper gave way, the smell hit me first, wet velvet and something metallic. I peeled it open. Inside, wrapped in a soaked pink towel, was my cat, Lulabelle, shaking, alive. But that wasn't what froze my blood. Next to her, inside a velvet pouch, was the deed to my house, my mother's house, folded and spotted with water. And under that, the small red jewelry box I hadn't seen since Mama's funeral. The suitcase hadn't been just a warning. It was a message. And I heard it loud and clear. I sat in the wet grass with Lulabelle curled in my lap, her small body shivering as I wrapped her tighter in the pink towel. My legs were streaked with mud and pine needles, my knees bleeding from the dock planks. I didn't feel any of it. I just stared up at the porch where Regina stood, hands on her hips like she'd just finished organizing a garage sale. "My name is Dolores Pierce," I said out loud, as if I needed to hear it to remember. "I'm 64 years old, and I don't scare easy." Regina tilted her head. "Don't make this into a drama, Dee." Her voice carried over the evening stillness, slicing through the cicadas. "It's just a suitcase, you're being ridiculous." That smirk. That lazy contempt. Like I was some TV rerun she'd grown tired of watching. I rose to my feet, cradling Lulabelle in the red velvet box, and walked slowly back toward the house. The soaked deed was tucked under my arm, clinging to me like the truth it carried. Inside, I laid my baby down on a warm towel in the laundry room, gave her a bit of chicken broth, then stripped off my wet clothes in the hallway and wrapped myself in a flannel robe. My palms were bruised, scraped raw. I rinsed the dirt and blood from them under the faucet, watching the water turn pink and swirl down the drain. By the time I walked into the den, Regina was on the porch with a glass of wine, legs crossed, scrolling her phone like nothing had happened. Her silhouette looked small and sharp against the screen door. I didn't speak to her. I needed a sane voice. I dialed my neighbor, Miss Patrice, on speaker, my hands still shaking. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Dee, everything okay?" I looked at my scraped palms, at Lulabelle peeking out from the laundry towel, at the wine-drunk woman claiming territory on my porch. "I just needed to hear someone normal," I said. "That's all." There was a pause. Then Patrice said gently, "Did Regina do something again?" I didn't answer, but the silence said enough. 2 days earlier, the house had been quiet. That kind of quiet that only comes when everyone's pretending things are fine. I wiped down the counters like I always did, using the lemon-scented spray I bought in bulk from Sam's Club. I checked the pantry twice to make sure the latch still clicked shut. Regina had complained about the ugly lock, I added, like I was hoarding cereal boxes and spaghetti noodles out of spite. Then I set the table for dinner. 3 plates, forks on cloth napkins. I still used the good set, Mama's china, because I believed in keeping dignity in the routine. Regina sat on the bar stool by the island, swirling her glass of wine like it was part of her wrist. "You don't have to set it like that every night, Dee," she said without looking up. "It's not the 50s. I didn't respond. I just placed the casserole on a potholder in the center. Chicken and squash, something her picky self actually ate. My back was turned when I heard her phone buzz on the island behind me. Then, silence. No footsteps. Just stillness, like she was waiting to see if I'd look. I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't. But when I turned to grab the salt shaker, I saw it. Her phone screen lit up with a text from a contact named Jax. "She still doesn't know. You're amazing." I paused, the salt halfway to the table. The phone buzzed again, this time flashing a selfie of Regina in my bathroom mirror. Red lips, holding my hand towel like a prop. My gut tightened. A week before, I'd paid her car insurance. $782 out of my savings. She'd come to me teary-eyed, said Calvin's unemployment was hitting them hard, and they just needed a little buffer until things got moving again. I paid it. Quietly. No questions. And now she was posing in my house, texting someone I didn't know, saying I still didn't know. I cleared the plates that night without eating. Calvin was late coming home again, said he had a side gig delivering food. Regina just drank and smiled, flipping through real estate apps on her tablet. Pastor Brent's wife, Sister Evelyn, had warned me once, gently, with that soft tilt of her head. "Watch that one, Miss D. She's got silk on the outside and steel underneath." I should have listened, but I had already opened my home, and the door stayed open longer than it should have. They moved in under the umbrella of crisis, laid off between places, just a few months, Calvin had said. That was February 2024. I still remember the morning they arrived. It was drizzling, that misty Georgia kind of rain that turns gravel to mush. Calvin's truck sputtered up the drive with 2 suitcases in the bed, both hers, of course. She stepped out like she was arriving at a boutique bed and breakfast, not her mother-in-law's modest lakefront in Hall County. Calvin, my only child, hugged me with both arms and buried his face in my neck like he was still 15. "Thanks for this, Mama. Just until things get steady. You're saving us." I nodded into his shoulder, blinking hard. He smelled like coffee and motor oil, just like his daddy used to. I had 2 guest rooms. They took the one with the bigger closet. Regina immediately asked if she could paint it. I said no. She pouted. The first few weeks were fine. Awkward, but manageable. She baked once, posted a photo of it with the caption, "Starting over from scratch with grace and gratitude, 2 hearts." I rolled my eyes but said nothing. Then came the gradual shifts. She rearranged the towels in the linen closet for efficiency, replaced my bar soap with a pump labeled "for sensitive skin," told Calvin that my coffee tasted dusty, and started ordering imported pods with my Kroger card. It wasn't until April that I realized how permanent she thought this was. I overheard her on a call with someone. Maybe her sister, maybe that Jax person. "Well, we're here now. It's a lake house, not a shack. Honestly, she kind of owes us. We gave up our apartment to be here. Owes." That word sat in my gut like a rusted nail. I scrolled back through old messages later that night, trying to understand how we got here. One from Calvin stood out, sent in January. "Mama, please don't make this harder. She's trying. I know she's a lot, but she's mine. Can you just give us some grace?" I had replied simply, "Of course. Come home." I kept that thread saved. There was no rental agreement, no promises in writing, just that quiet handshake of trust, mother to son. I'd let them in because I loved him, because I believed in second chances and family shoulders being strong when jobs fall through. But Regina never saw it as temporary. She moved in like she was inheriting something. And maybe, in her mind, she was. On July 18th, I sat in my den with a notebook in my lap and a highlighter in my hand. The kind of yellow highlighter that bleeds through thin paper. I hadn't used it in years. Lula Bell was curled beside me, one paw on the edge of the notebook like she was guarding it. I stroked her head absent-mindedly, flipping through bank statements I'd printed at the library. I needed to see it in numbers, not just feelings. Rent, $500 a month for 10 months. I had sent the checks to their old landlord even after they moved here. To keep our good standing, Regina said. That was $5,000, plus $400 in February when they were late. Utilities, water, gas, electric. About $120 a month, with spikes in the summer. That added up to $1, $200. Groceries? That was harder to nail down. My average bill had jumped by at least $300 a month since they moved in. I conservatively marked it at $3.050. That didn't even include Regina's little extras. Organic almond milk, face masks, her favorite imported tea I didn't touch, $9,650. $9,650 in 10 months, quietly, steadily, without one signed promise, without a single word of thanks that didn't sound performative. I wrote the number in block letters at the bottom of the page. I circled it. My hand was shaking. When I told Regina what I'd calculated, just trying to have a growing conversation, she scoffed. Literally. Blew a puff of air from her nose like I'd told her the sky was falling. You chose to help us, she said, waving her wine glass. Don't turn it into a guilt trip. That's manipulative. I blinked. It's not about guilt. It's about acknowledgement. You're living here for free, Regina. We're family, she snapped. It's not like we're strangers off the street. No, not strangers, but not grateful either. I remember sitting there on the couch after she left the room, my notebook still open on my lap. The sunlight was slanting across the carpet, casting a gold streak on the ink. It felt like a ledger, like I was finally seeing the full cost of my silence. That same week, Mr. Ernest from Truist Bank called. Miss Pierce, he said, we had someone come in and try to set up a joint card in your name. I flagged it just in case. I froze. Who? I asked, already knowing the answer. He hesitated. A Regina Pierce. The ledger in my lap was no longer just about groceries. It was about boundaries. June 3rd was muggy, the kind of sticky heat that makes paper curl at the edges. I was sorting the mail near the front door, the box fan humming behind me. Bills, catalogs, a church bulletin from Mount Zion. Then I saw it, a Georgia Power envelope, the familiar white and blue. But something was off. My name was faint, like it had been whited out and rewritten. The font wasn't right. And it wasn't addressed to me, Dolores Pierce. It said L. Pierce. I opened it. The bill had been rerouted to online delivery last month. The name on the account had been changed. Primary account holder, Regina Pierce. My name was nowhere on it. I felt a strange, cold bloom in my chest, that sensation when something too small confirms something too big. Regina walked in from the back porch right then, barefoot, a glass of kombucha sweating in her hand. She saw the envelope in mine and didn't miss a beat. Oh yeah, she said. I updated that. It was a mess trying to figure out which name was on what. I figured I'd just organize things. You changed the account name. I streamlined it. Her voice was flat. You should be thanking me. I nodded slowly, heart thudding like a faraway drum. I said nothing, just walked back into the kitchen and placed the envelope under the magnet on the fridge, the one shaped like a watermelon slice. That night, I made a note on a note card. Georgia Power account altered. June 3rd. No consent. I didn't report it. Not yet. Instead, I tucked the card behind my spice rack, in an old Altoids tin that also held Lula Bell's rabies tag, a receipt from Mama's funeral flowers, and the faded Polaroid of Calvin when he was 5, wearing a cape made from a pillowcase, grinning like nothing could touch him. I stared at that picture for a long time. How had we gotten here? When did Regina start believing that shared space meant shared ownership? It wasn't just the utilities. It was how she moved through the house like a queen in waiting, left her shoes by the front door like a homeowner, answered the landline, took the last scoop of peach cobbler without asking. That envelope, small as it was my first real proof. Not suspicion, not bad feelings. Proof. And I've learned something. Paper tells the truth people won't. On July 9th, the air was thick and mean, the way only Georgia summer knows how to be. I'd escaped to the back porch with a glass of sweet tea and my crossword book, trying to cool down and clear my head. Regina was inside somewhere, talking loud on speakerphone as usual. No respect for walls or ears. I wasn't listening at first. Not until I heard a phrase that didn't belong in my house. "Yes, title transfer is in process," she said. I froze. She was in the kitchen, and I could hear every word through the screen door. "Yes, it's Lake Lanier property. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, lakefront access. We're looking to refinance before September if possible." My body went still. Not tense. Still. Like prey. A man's voice replied faintly from the phone. I couldn't catch all of it. Just fragments. "Needs signature, owner of record?" Regina laughed. "Don't worry, we've got that handled." I reached for my phone and hit record. Not because I was thinking ahead. Just instinct. My thumb shaking on the screen. The rest of the call was a blur. Figures, refinancing, words like investment potential, and multi-generational equity. She was pitching my home like it was a weekend rental. When she hung up, I slipped back inside and walked straight to the laundry room, locking the door behind me. I replayed the audio once, then saved it, emailed it to myself, printed it the next morning at the library, and slid the sheet into my evidence folder, an old blue binder I kept in a dresser drawer behind my winter sweaters. The binder now held the utility envelope, my bank ledger, the truest voicemail log from Mr. Iggy, Ernest, and this new printout audio transcript of Regina lying to a loan officer about a title transfer. That night, I made chili and watched her eat 2 bowls like nothing had happened. Calvin came home late again, kissed her cheek, and nodded when she said the phrase, "We'll be out of here by fall." We? The next morning, I walked through my house slowly, touching things I hadn't looked at in a long time. Mama's quilt on the armchair. Daddy's pipe still on the mantel, untouched since '89. The photo of me and Calvin at his high school graduation, my arms around his shoulders, both of us beaming like the world hadn't yet cracked. She wasn't just talking about refinancing. She was planning a future where I didn't exist. And now I had proof in my own voice recorder. It was July 31st, 3 days before the suitcase. I came back from the post office with a roll of stamps and a small bag of peaches. The moment I turned onto my street, I saw it. A for sale sign, planted crooked in my front yard like a knife. Red and white, bold print. I slammed the brakes and just stared. The world spun, slower, louder. Cicadas screamed in the heat. The mail slid off the passenger seat into the floorboard. My eyes narrowed on the bottom of the sign. By appointment only. Lakefront Jewel. I left the car door wide open. Regina was on the porch, sipping something pink from a mason jar and scrolling her phone. She saw me, stood up, and waved like we were old friends meeting for lunch. "We're just exploring options," she called out. "You'll get a cut." I walked right past her and into the house, peaches still in hand. I dropped them in the sink, grabbed my phone, and took a photo of the sign. Then I pulled up Zillow. There it was. My house. My mama's house. 3 beds, 2 baths, dock access, updated HVAC, and even a drone photo of the roof. The listing had gone live that morning. My heart was pounding so hard it made my teeth ache. I couldn't breathe through my nose. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my phone, the Zillow page still glowing like a warning light. There was no title transfer, no signed deed, no legal permission, just an attempted sale. Fraud, pure and simple. And she thought she could explain it away with, "You'll get a cut." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't touch that for sale sign. I just stood in the middle of my home, surrounded by generations of love and labor, and I knew I was done with silence. I called my lawyer, Marion Dubois, before dinner. She answered on the second ring. "Dolores, what's going on?" "I need you to look into a listing on Zillow. My address. Regina behind it." There was a pause. "Is the deed still in your name?" "Yes. I have the original. And I've got documentation." "Then we've got something to work with," she said, her voice crisp. "Keep every screenshot. Don't remove that sign just yet. We'll need it." That night, I slept with the red velvet jewelry box on my nightstand and the deed tucked under my pillow. The house was still mine, but it wasn't safe. Not anymore. August 1st was unnaturally quiet. Regina was in the kitchen before I was cooking. I hadn't seen her cook once since she moved in, unless you count microwaving oat milk. "Made you breakfast," she said, placing a plate in front of me like we were strangers on a cruise ship. 2 eggs, toast, and turkey sausage. We've all been a little tense lately. I thought this might help. I looked down at the plate, then up at her. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Calvin came in behind her, kissed her cheek, then gave me a nod like he was performing for a hidden camera. "Mama," he said, "can we talk?" We sat at the table, all 3 of us, like a family that hadn't just detonated its trust. Calvin reached for my hand. I didn't give it. "She didn't mean anything by the listing," he began. "It was more of a feeler, just testing the market, seeing what's out there." Regina nodded vigorously. "We weren't going to move forward without your input." I didn't respond. "We're just trying to build a future," Calvin said. "With you, Mama. With you." He pulled out his phone and read from a message. An apology text, clearly drafted and revised. "Mama D, I'm sorry if it felt like we were going behind your back. We were trying to build our future with you, not without you." The words were hollow, like canned peaches, sweet but soft from sitting in syrup too long. "You're saying that now," I said finally, my voice calm. "But the sign's still in my yard." "We'll take it down," Regina said quickly. "Right, Cal?" He nodded. Of course. That night, they were all giggles and casual touches. Regina even lit candles at dinner. She laughed at Calvin's dumb jokes, complimented my blouse, asked if I wanted to watch a movie together. It was all a show, a soft lullaby to rock me back to sleep. But I wasn't tired anymore. Later, I went for a walk along the lake. The moonlight glittered over the dark water like a cracked mirror. My reflection stared back at me. Tired, yes, but sharpened. I called Pastor Brent, let his voice settle me. "You don't owe anyone peace at the price of your dignity," he said. "Silence can look like grace, but sometimes it's just a noose." I thanked him and hung up. Back home, I stood by the door a moment before I went in. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was strategy, and it was my turn to make a move. By the evening of August 3rd, I had waited long enough. The suitcase changed everything. She threw it from the dock like it was trash, like it held nothing. But it had my name written all over it. Past, present, future. Inside were the red velvet jewelry box I hadn't touched since Mama's passing, Lullabelle wrapped in a towel, and my house deed. It wasn't just disrespect anymore. It was erasure. I stood there dripping, heart jackhammering against my ribs as Regina smirked from the porch. That smile, that smug, wine-soaked grin, snapped something in me, like a branch bending too long under weight. I pulled my phone from my damp robe pocket and called 911. "Hall County Dispatch," the woman said. "Do you need police, fire, or medical?" "Sheriff," I said. "I need a deputy at 214 Lakeview Drive. There's been tampering with personal property." I retrieved a sealed suitcase from the lake. It had living things and legal documents inside. "Is the person still on scene?" "Yes," I said, staring straight at Regina. And she's smiling. 25 minutes later, 2 cruisers pulled up, lights swirling over pine trunks and porch rails. The neighbors started peeking through curtains, some stepping out in slippers. Regina stood frozen, the smile gone. Deputy Ramirez took the report. Young, respectful, with eyes that didn't flinch. I laid it all out on the porch table. The wet jewelry box, Lullabelle's damp towel, the crumpled deed still soft with lake water. Ramirez gloved up and inspected everything. "She threw this in front of you?" "I watched her roll it to the edge and hurl it," I said. "Heard the thump before I hit the water." "What's your relation?" "She's married to my son." Ramirez nodded slowly. "Ma'am, I'm logging all of this. The cat's considered living property. The deed and heirlooms. We'll document and photograph. You'll get a full case number tonight." Regina tried to explain, something about stress and overreaction. Ramirez shut it down with a look. "We're not here to interpret intentions," he said. "We're here to document actions." I handed him a folder. Inside was the printout of the Zillow listing, the utility bill in her name, and the photo of the for sale sign from my lawn. He took them silently. When they left, Regina went to her room and slammed the door. I stayed on the porch until the moon was high, Lulabelle curled in my lap again, breathing slow and warm. I'd played quiet too long. The suitcase was her message. Calling the sheriff? That was mine. By 8:45 the next morning, I was parked in front of Truist Bank in downtown Gainesville, gripping a manila folder like it was armor. Inside was everything. Printouts, photos, the police case number scrawled neatly by Deputy Ramirez. The sun hadn't fully cleared the buildings yet. Shadows still stretched across the sidewalk as I stepped into the air-conditioned bank. It smelled like new carpet and lemon polish. Mr. Ernest was already behind the counter, tie neat, eyes sharp behind those little square glasses. "Miss Pierce," he said, surprised. "You okay?" "I need to freeze every joint account," I said quietly, "and revoke every automatic draft, especially anything Regina tried to set up." He didn't blink. "Come on back." In his glass office, I laid everything out. He didn't ask why. Not yet. He saw the police report and the water-warped photo of my deed, and understood more than most would have said out loud. "She tried to add herself to your line of credit last week," he muttered, typing fast. "I flagged it. Never finalized. I want every password changed. PINs, too. And I want fraud alerts on all accounts. Every last one." He nodded. "We can do that. You have 2 checking accounts, 1 savings, and a line of credit. Combined, you've got about $18, $200 across them all. Keep it that way," I said. "Lock them down. If I have to start over with fresh accounts, so be it." We spent 45 minutes scrubbing my financial trail clean. Mr. Ernest printed freeze confirmations, new account summaries, and even offered to walk me through setting up a separate digital vault for sensitive documents. As I left, my phone lit up like fireworks. 16 missed calls, all from Regina. Then a text from Calvin. "Mama, please answer. Regina's freaking out. She said your accounts are locked. Is something going on?" I didn't reply. Instead, I walked across the street to the diner and ordered eggs, grits, and bacon. Sat by the window, letting sunlight warm the side of my face. I hadn't eaten breakfast out in months. Always cooked for others. Always saved money, just in case. This was the case. When I got home, I tucked the bank confirmation letters into the evidence binder, folded neatly. Regina was pacing the kitchen, phone to her ear. She stopped when she saw me. "You locked me out of everything," she hissed. I walked past her and said, plain and calm, "I secured what's mine." And this time, I meant all of it. August 5th, I carried 2 canvas bags into the Hall County Library, one full of printed emails, the other with a flash drive. The librarian recognized me. "Miss D, you bringing recipes again?" "Something like that," I said with a smile that didn't reach. I claimed the last printer in the back row, away from the windows. The library was quiet, air cool, and still. I logged into the terminal and opened the folder I'd named Suitcase Case. Inside, Regina's Instagram story showing the porch with a smug caption. "Lake life isn't so bad." A text from her sister bragging. "When's the move-in date? She'll never see it coming." Voicemails from Regina. "We're just trying to help you manage things, Dee." Email from a real estate agent confirming the listing was initiated by L. Pierce, using the codes sent to her email. Bank notice time-stamped June 28th. Attempted card addition flagged as suspicious. Every click, every keystroke was a nail in the coffin of denial. I printed it all. The machine hummed and spat out page after page. I sorted them carefully. One stack for financial manipulation, another for false listing attempts, a third for emotional leverage. On the last page, I printed a blown-up image of the suitcase, dripping at the dock's edge. Deputy Ramirez had emailed it to me, per my request, time-stamped, cataloged, real. The librarian passed by, glanced at the photo. Her lips parted slightly. She said nothing. Back home, I laid everything out on the dining table like a crime board. Notebooks, printouts, emails, the photo of Lulabelle blinking through mesh. The blue binder was full now, snapping at the seams. I called Marion Dubois. "Ready for a case file?" I asked. She arrived that evening with a leather tote, wearing jeans and a silk blouse, looked me in the eye and said, "Let's make this bulletproof." She scanned each page, made notes, added post-its. We organized everything into labeled sections, cross-referenced with dates and confirmations. When we were done, she patted the binder like it was a newborn. "This," she said, "is a wall." Regina walked in as Marion zipped her tote. She saw the binder, the folders, the controlled calm between us. "What is all this?" she asked. "Documentation," I said. "For what?" Marion met her eyes. "Protection. Legally and otherwise." Regina's lip twitched. She didn't ask again. "Because paper doesn't lie, and neither would I." By August 7th, I was done holding anything alone. I started making calls. Careful, deliberate, private. Not for sympathy. For strategy. First was Miss Patrice across the road. She'd seen Regina toss that suitcase. Heard the splash. "I'll write a statement," she said without blinking. "And I'll bring the video I took that night." Caught her walking off like it was nothing. Then I rang Pastor Brent. He listened quietly, the way he always had since Calvin's baptism. "The church has a legal aid committee now," he said. "Folks who help with property disputes, guardianship cases, that sort of thing. We'll back you, Miss D. Just say when." Last was Calvin's godmother, Ms. Loretta. She'd known me since Calvin was in Pampers, and wore hats to every church picnic like royalty. When I told her what Regina had done, what Calvin had allowed, she sighed so deep it hit me in the chest. "Oh, baby," she said, voice thick. I knew that girl was made of glass and vinegar. "I'll come. I'll write. You just ask." By noon, I had 3 written statements and 2 confirmations for in-person support. I called Marion to coordinate. We chose the church meeting room, neutral ground, familiar walls, folding chairs, that smell of lemon oil and old hymnals. On the morning of August 7th, I laid out bottled waters, a basket of muffins, and placed each printed statement in a folder on the long table. When Regina texted Calvin, "They're ganging up on me," I saw the notification pop up on the laptop screen I'd synced earlier that month. His cloud account had auto-logged in. I read it once, then closed the lid. At 2 p.m., we began. Me, Marion, Patrice, Pastor Brent, Ms. Loretta, and one woman from the Legal Aid Committee with thick glasses and a sharper tongue than I expected. We didn't talk about feelings. We talked about evidence, about boundary violations, about theft masked as dependency. "People think elder abuse just looks like bruises," the legal aid woman said. "But it can look like fraudulent listings too, like withholding information, like isolation tactics." Pastor Brent nodded solemnly. "In Scripture says, a wicked man accepts a bribe in secret to pervert the course of justice." I looked around that table and didn't feel alone anymore. These weren't just allies. They were witnesses, and Regina could call it ganging up all she wanted. I called it backup. On August 9th, I sat on my living room couch, lace doilies freshly laundered, Lulabelle purring softly on my lap. The ceiling fan spun slowly above, a rhythm I'd known since Mama's time. Marion Dubois stood at the edge of my rug, her voice steady, her heels silent on the wood floor. "She's served," Marion said, tucking a copy of the cease and desist notice into my binder. "She signed for it this morning. Delivered by courier. Time stamped 9:11 a.m. The letter was simple, but sharp. Legal language that cut clean. Vacate the property within 14 days or face civil litigation. Cease any representation, verbal or written, that you own or have rights to this property. Failure to comply will trigger immediate court filings." It also included the warning that all financial transactions involving my name were under review, with potential for criminal referral. Regina came in from the patio while Marion was still packing up her briefcase. She saw the envelope on the console table, her name in crisp ink. "What's this?" she asked, picking it up. Marion looked her dead in the eye. "Formal notice to vacate." Regina blinked like she'd been slapped. You'd ruin your own son's marriage over a misunderstanding? She hissed. No misunderstanding, I said. You threw my mother's deed into a lake. You lied to a loan officer. You forged my power bill. You listed my house without consent. She opened the envelope, skimmed the first page, and dropped it on the floor like it was coated in fire. You think this is justice? You think this makes you noble? She spat. You've always been bitter, Dee. You're lonely, controlling. Calvin said it himself. I stood up slowly, Lula Bell hopping down to the rug. I've been many things, Regina, but I've never taken what wasn't mine. She flinched. Marian stepped forward, calm but unyielding. You now have 13 days. At the end of that period, we will involve court authorities. Everything's documented. You won't win, Regina said under her breath. You think this is a clean fight? But it's not. Then you'd better bring clean gloves, I said. Because this time, I'm not stepping back. Regina stormed down the hall, door slamming behind her like thunder. I sat back down on the couch. Marian touched my shoulder briefly. That was your line in the sand, she said. No? I replied softly, picking up the envelope from the floor and placing it back on the console. That was the start of the tide rolling back. August 15th, 6 days left on her notice. The HOA meeting was already tense before she walked in. We met monthly at the Orchard View Clubhouse. Neutral turf with folding chairs, lemonade, and too many opinions about fence paint. I hadn't planned to speak. I came for routine. Speed bumps, dock repairs, the usual. But Regina had plans of her own. She burst through the doors 15 minutes late, stilettos echoing across the linoleum. Hair curled, blouse too tight, a manicured hand gripping a folder like it held gold. I need to speak, she said, bypassing the sign-up sheet. This is urgent. Charles Red, the HOA president, retired judge, proud widower, didn't play favorites, looked up slowly from his notes. State your concern, Miss Pierce, he said. She launched into it like a monologue. I'm here because Dolores Pierce, my husband's mother, is displaying signs of cognitive decline, erratic decisions, paranoia. She's locked us out of shared finances and is spreading misinformation to neighbors and institutions. Murmurs broke out. A few heads turned toward me. I kept my back straight. She's being manipulated, Regina continued, pulling out a set of printed emails. I have emails where she admits to being confused about online banking. And she held them up, fanned like a poker hand. These are messages from her friends encouraging legal action without understanding the facts. She turned to me. You're being weaponized. Charles leaned back in his chair, lips pursed. Do you have any official diagnosis? Letters from a physician? No. But then you're floating allegations without evidence. This board doesn't operate on hearsay. She stiffened. I stood slowly, reached into my purse and pulled out the Bluetooth speaker Marian had loaded for me. May I asked. Charles nodded. Go ahead, Miss Pierce. I hit play. Regina's voice crackled through the room. Yes, title transfer is in process. Then, don't worry, we've got that handled. The room went silent. I followed it with a printout of my original deed, unbroken chain of ownership, notary stamps clear as day. Then Marian's cease and desist letter. Then a screen grab of the Zillow listing with Regina's email logged as the contact. Charles looked at her. Anything else to add, Miss Pierce? Her face flushed. That's not the full story. It's enough of it, he said, folding his hands. This meeting is not your stage. Kindly take your seat or leave. She chose to leave. As the door shut behind her, Charles gave me a slow nod. Sometimes justice doesn't wear a robe. Sometimes it wears a cardigan and runs the HOA. August 18th, brunch day. I booked the community center kitchen hall 2 weeks earlier under the name Pierce Family Gathering. No drama in the name, just neutral enough to draw folks in. I invited who mattered. Patrice, Ms. Loretta, Pastor Brent, Marian, Mr. Ernest from Truist, and Deputy Ramirez. And yes, Calvin, too. I baked an egg casserole that morning, laid out muffins, fruit, coffee, and one long table set with printed folders and clear plastic stands. Each station displayed a part of the story. At 11 a.m. sharp, the door creaked open. Regina entered in her best. Black slacks, a cream blouse, silver hoops swinging like they were announcing her arrival. Calvin trailed behind, looking tired, lips pressed together. She looked around and froze. Banker, lawyer, deputy, pastor, and me, at the head of the table, calm as river stone. "What is this?" she asked, laughing thinly. "A tribunal." "No," I said, standing. "It's brunch," she scoffed. "You're out of your mind." I didn't respond. I tapped the table twice. Patrice hit the lights. Marion clicked on the presentation screen behind me. A slow loop of documents, texts, photos, no music, just facts. "Welcome," I said. "You're all here because I needed light on something that's been done in shadows. This isn't about feelings, it's about facts." I pointed to the first table. Table 1, Zillow listing, printed screenshot, Regina email highlighted. Timestamp, July 31st, 2025, 8:03 a.m. Table 2, the suitcase, photo taken by Deputy Ramirez. Evidence tag, heirloom jewelry, house deed, live animal. Table 3, paper trail, utility account name change, June 3rd. Attempted credit card application flagged by Truist. Audio transcript from July 9th call with refinance officer. Regina crossed her arms. "You've been spying on me." "No," I said. "I've been documenting. There's a difference." Pastor Brent leaned forward. "Miss Regina, these are verified records. You've endangered a woman, her home, and a household legacy." Regina turned to Calvin. "You're really going to sit here and let this happen?" Calvin looked at me, then the deed, then Lulabelle's photo beside the suitcase. He didn't speak. Deputy Ramirez stepped up, hands clasped behind his back. "All of this is part of an active case file. We're here to observe, not interrogate." Regina's jaw twitched. "So what's the end game here, Dee?" I met her eyes. "The truth on the table. In front of everyone." Behind me, Marion unlocked a briefcase and revealed the originals. Deed, notarized statements, fraud alert logs. It wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. And Regina? She wasn't center stage anymore. She was cornered by her own paper trail. At exactly 11:32 a.m., I opened the final folder. A soft click echoed through the kitchen hall as I pulled out the black and white voicemail transcript. Then I pressed play on the small Bluetooth speaker again. This time, no preamble. Regina's voice filled the room. "If she doesn't hand over that deed soon, I swear I'll—" She hadn't finished the sentence in the voicemail. Just a sharp breath, then a hang-up. It was enough. I followed it with a screenshot of a text she sent Calvin that night after the HOA meeting. "Fine. I tried. So what?" Calvin, seated to my left, dropped his eyes. His shoulders sank like a deflated tire. I laid down the printed notarized logs from Mr. Ernest. Attempted joint account access. Flagged credit application. Access revoked notices, dated and initialed. Then the legal aid statement of timeline. Pastor Brent's written support. Ms. Loretta's affidavit. Miss Patrice's video still of Regina walking away from the lake, suitcase visibly in tow. I didn't speak over any of it. I let the silence do the work. Regina stood frozen. Her face drained to a color I hadn't seen on her before, something closer to recognition than anger. "You think this makes you noble?" she finally muttered. "You think shaming me in front of everyone is justice?" "I think truth is," I said. Calvin turned to her, voice low. "You really threw Mama's deed into the lake?" Regina didn't answer. He looked at me. "I didn't know." I nodded once. "I believe you." That's when Officer Rollins, who'd been seated quietly near the punch bowl, stood and spoke. "We've reviewed this evidence thoroughly," he said. "There's enough here for a full report to the Hall County DA. For now, Regina Pierce is not under arrest. But this meeting establishes timeline, motive, and multiple counts of fraudulent activity." Regina's mouth opened, then closed. Officer Rollins walked over, handed me a stamped revocation form, officially stripping her of any claim to my property, accounts, or representation. "It's recorded and filed," he said. "Your house is fully secured under your name, Mrs. Pierce." The folder was closed. Regina looked around one last time, realized the circle had closed, and not around her. She bolted for the door. Didn't even take her purse. Just left the echo of her shoes behind her. I stood a moment longer, hand on the folder. That sound of truth spoken aloud, of witnesses standing firm, was louder than any scream. And it was enough. I stood on my porch as dusk settled over Lake Lanier. The air was thick, but quiet. The crickets had just started their evening song. That's when Calvin pulled up. Alone. He stepped out slowly, hands in his pockets, eyes red-rimmed but sober. "I didn't know," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I thought she was building something for us. Not stealing it." I nodded. Said nothing. He pulled a folded sheet of paper from his jacket, one of the copies from the brunch timeline. He unfolded it, stared at the printouts, the deed photo, the voicemail transcript, the text he hadn't seen until that morning. "I missed it," he said. "All of it." "You trusted her," I said. "That's not a sin. But trust without boundaries? That's an invitation." He looked down. "Do you want me to leave?" "You already did," I said gently. "Back when you let her make this house a battleground." He flinched, but didn't argue. I handed him one thing, a laminated copy of the timeline, color-coded and time-stamped. "So when you start questioning what happened, don't call me. Read this, and don't let anyone ever call it a misunderstanding again." He nodded, jaw clenched, eyes shining. Then he turned and walked back to his car, slower this time. I went inside and locked the door behind me. The next morning, I hung a small framed copy of the house deed in the hallway, Mama's signature just visible beneath the watermark. I placed the red velvet jewelry box on my dresser, set Lulabelle's food by the window where the sun hits at noon, and I exhaled. Not in relief, but in reclamation. My house, my name, my proof.